Welcome to the Limitless Potential podcast, where together we will dive into the personal, business, and career-rich tips, techniques, stories, and experiences of some incredibly successful and inspirational people, each with their own perspectives and journeys, and each with golden nuggets of wisdom which might just change your life. I'm Tracy Stone, and I'm a master trainer in a number of career supercharging techniques, a transformational coach, international best-selling author, inspirational speaker, and a woman discovering and evolving my very own limitless potential day by day.
I went to yoga and I want to play now.
Hi, and welcome back to the Limitless Potential podcast. I'm delighted today to welcome Linda Attram, who joins us from London in the UK. For the past 22 years, Linda has been running a hugely successful property business, including a multi-million-pound property portfolio, serviced accommodation, and building development projects. And she's also the founder of Mothers in Business. Linda is happily married, a proud mother of 3 precious diamonds, and a second Dan black belt in the martial art of Taekwondo. Linda incorporates the tenets of Taekwondo: courtesy, integrity, perseverance, self-control, and indomitable spirit in training and in her personal and business life. Linda was awarded the prestigious Global Woman Exceptional Award in 2020 and is the Global Woman Club Regional Director in Accra, Ghana. Born in the UK, but of Caribbean heritage, Linda came from very humble beginnings, a shy girl who lacked confidence, self-esteem, and even identity. She left school with very little education, but with a burning desire to change. She chose to re-educate herself to university degree level, which led to a successful 18-year career in human resources management. Linda is a devoted mother, meticulous businesswoman, author, and a public speaker. She understands the challenges entrepreneurial mothers face, and that's why she created Mothers in Business, to provide a safe platform for mothers to grow and feel supported and to create the life they desire and deserve. You can read Linda's story in the Amazon best-selling book that she co-authored, The Mind of Female Entrepreneurs: How to Think and Act to Succeed in Business. Welcome, Linda, and thanks for joining us.
Oh, hello, Tracy, and thank you so much for the opportunity to be on your amazing podcast. I'm really, really honored. Thank you.
Oh my God, it's my pleasure. And you have got such an interesting story to tell and amazing things that you're doing with your life. So I can't wait for us to get stuck into all that juicy goodness.
Yeah.
Well, let's start it all at the beginning, as I always do, Linda. Let's go back into the past, and if you will, tell us what young Linda was like. What was life like for you growing up as a child? And take us through the journey of life with you.
Oh, thank you. And it's such a great question to start with. So my earliest memory would be going back to about the age of 5. And I'm from a family of 4 girls. So I'm the youngest out of the 4. And there's 10 years difference between myself and my last sibling. So I don't know if that was a blessing or if I was an accident. But anyway, so what that basically meant, as a child growing up, I used to play a lot by myself because all of my sisters were much older. So as I was young, they were in high school and we had different types of interests. So being a shy person, playing on my own, all contributed to how life started for Linda. And I remember a time when I always used to look out of the window because we lived in this 3-story house, and I'd always look out of the window. It was one of these sash windows that you just push up, and I'd look out the window and I'd look at people walking past, and I'd always wonder, how were these people so confident in the way that they dressed? Obviously, the word confident wasn't a word I had when I was 5 years old, but I was mesmerized by the way people would walk past the road, how they'd have conversations with different people, how they would dress each day, and just the way that they walked. And I always wished that I would be like that, because something in me was always saying that I wasn't confident. I didn't have a lot of self-belief. And I don't know if that was as part of my upbringing, because I'm from a Caribbean my parents are from the Caribbean. And so they came over in the Windrush generation in the 1950s, and they came over to the UK to make a much better life for themselves. So they were very strict parents. You spoke when you were spoken to, didn't give any back chat whatsoever. So it was a very respectful household. And so I think, coupled with that and not having other siblings my age, generally, contributed to me being quite a quiet child. But then when I started going to school, I realized that everyone wasn't like me. A lot of the people were much more loud than me. They were more, I felt more interesting than I was. And I wanted to be like them. I wanted to be in the in crowd, but I just didn't have the confidence to do that. So when I reached high school, obviously, there were different pressures going on in life. And I made some errors, basically. I started hanging around with the wrong types of people. So I wasn't necessarily focusing on my education. I was focusing on being with the in crowd. And, I'm not going to go into the types of things that I got into at school, but they weren't in my best interest, put it that way. So I ended up leaving school with very little education. I left with no English and no maths qualification. I came out with a GCSE, or a no level, as they called it in those times, in RE. I had no intentions of becoming a nun or going into religion whatsoever. So that really wasn't going to help me. And the school that I went to was a school in West London. I won't name the school for obvious reasons, but it was a school where the head teacher got murdered outside of the school gates in a gang fight. He was going to break up a gang fight, but it was in an urban London city area where people of colour weren't expected to do very well. So the teachers didn't necessarily have a lot of time. If you weren't that interested, fine. If you were interested, they'd go ahead and teach you. But I made the mistake of hanging around with the wrong types of people, and that's what contributed to me not doing very well at school. So I felt very, very disappointed at when I left school in myself. I felt that I let myself down. I felt that I let my family down, because they come over from the Caribbean to make a better life for themselves, clearly to have a family so that they can, continue that tradition of doing better. And so that was a big wake-up call for me. And I decided, once I left school and I saw that piece of paper that said, nil point, that I needed to change that around. And so I went back into college doing, I started off doing secretarial work in college, just finding out about office procedures and things like that. But then I decided to do extra classes in the evening for English and maths, which I did over a period of a couple of years, and then got my English and maths qualifications. But the reason why I went into to study secretarial work was because that's what my sisters did. And I thought that's what I needed to do. I just needed to do what everyone else did. I didn't have that mindset of thinking I could do something completely different. And again, like when I was very young, looking out the window, I would see other people around me, going into different types of career choices. And I was thinking, well, why can't I do that? Is it because I'm a person of colour that I have to be contained within this box? Or is it because I'm not pushing myself? Or is my confidence stopping me from doing something completely different? And I had this desire to be a beautician. There were two things: a beautician and a recruitment consultant. Beauty, because I didn't feel pretty at all. I had a large gap in the center of my teeth, and I felt like my teeth were going in nautical directions. I never used to smile much at all. I would just do a little grin because of my teeth. I just felt very, very ugly. I wouldn't make eye contact with people. I'd, always look down. And I just felt very, very conscious about what I said and how I looked as well. And so going back to, why I chose the secretarial route is because I thought that's what I needed to do. And a recruitment consultant as well, that was my other option. And the reason for that was I thought I can help people, but I have to be really confident to be a recruitment consultant. And they do a lot of selling, and that petrified me. So I thought, I'm not even going to do that. So when I came out of secretarial college, I thought, well, how can I still do something in that area, but use my secretarial skills? And I got a job. I don't know how I got through the interview, to be quite honest, because I was a bag of nerves in terms of my confidence. And I got a job in a retail organisation, and it was Burberry's and the Scotch House Limited, a wonderful fashion organisation. And I was there as a human resources secretary. And I'd go there and I'd do whatever they said I needed to do, and I'd leave and I'd go home. And one of the things that really impacted my life, and it's always stayed with me, and it's one of these things that I never ever want my children to go through, is that because of my lack of confidence at that time, when it came to working and I was given tasks to do, I would do them. But when it came to socializing, for example, lunch, where I'd have to leave my desk, I'd have to go and sit in the canteen, I'd have to talk to people, or at least somebody might talk to me and I'd have to respond back, that petrified me. And what I would do is I would bring my lunch in, I'd make sandwiches, and I'd bring my lunch in and I'd go to the toilet. And I'd go in the toilet cubicle, shut the door, and I'd eat my food.
Oh, wow, Linda.
Yeah.
That's
Eat my food.
huge. I think an awful lot of people are going to resonate with that, whether it's the toilet or a quiet office room or pretending to be working or on a call to try and avoid that interaction because they don't feel confident or good enough in some. Wow, okay.
Yeah. And I did that for many, many months because it was my first job and I was out there in the big world. I was in central London. I was in this big fashion house, and, it was full of confident people. And there was little me thinking, oh my goodness, I'm a fish, out of water here. And the option was either eat in the toilet or spend a fortune in a restaurant. I'd go to a restaurant and I'd sit by myself on a table. I think it was called Angus Steakhouse at the time. And I'd just, I'd get a meal, but it would just be like the cost of the meal would be like extortionate for a lunch meal where I could just have a sandwich. But it was just so that I could be on my own. But the turning point for me was that my boss at the time, her name was Christine, and she was a lovely lady, and she made me feel very welcome. And she could see something in me that I couldn't see in myself. And she'd always give me praise and feedback, which was something that I wasn't used to because the type of school that I was in, I had very supportive parents. My mum was always saying to me, focus on your education, although I didn't, because she didn't have a lot of education herself. She was the eldest of 16 children.
16.
And yeah, 16. And when she left Grenada, she left all of her siblings behind. And so Christine saw something in me, and she started, doing these appraisals and reviews with me, which was very different. And she offered me the opportunity to continue my education in HR. And she said to me, there's a program that I'd like you to go on so that you can be more involved in our department. And I was like, wow, this is like really, really strange. But it made me feel so good. It made me feel that even though I didn't feel confident in myself, somebody else saw something in me. So I took the opportunity, and I think it was one afternoon and one evening a week that I would go along to this college that was in Leicester Square at the time, and I'd continue working throughout the rest of the week. And so as I was going through that particular course, there were different tasks and exercises that I'd have to do, which would get me more involved in the workplace. It got me more involved in talking to people. And so that helped to build my confidence to the point where she then sponsored me to do a degree in human resources management as well. And that was just amazing. And that's where my HR career took off. Starting off in retail, then I worked in places like Great Ormond Street Children's Hospital. Then for Thorn EMI, I then became a regional director, traveling around the UK, interacting with people, building up my confidence. And, that was the beginning for me.
A far cry from the shy little girl that started out. And
yeah,
if you think about leaving school without as much education behind you or qualification behind you as you now know you would have loved to have had, but at the time you can understand how you made the choices you made or how you ended up there. If you were able to give some advice to other young people at that age group who are in that same kind of boat and are struggling and think there is no big future for me, and this is my life, I'm not going to get all the qualifications, that's for other people, and I'm going to be limited in this way, what advice would you give them, or what would you share with them? What pearl of wisdom would you share with those young people who are at that kind of tipping point?
Yeah, that's such a great question. Thank you. And my response to them would be that, there are far more opportunities now than there ever have been. And to go out there and grab every single opportunity. My issue is that I felt that I had low self-esteem, lack of confidence. I didn't feel supported. But there are so many opportunities now for young people. And I know it's obviously as well with, there's lots of peer pressure out there, perhaps much more than it was in my day. But it's about, creating that self-belief for you and having that confidence to be different, because you might be hanging around a group of people that are saying, oh, it's not cool to do this, it's not cool to do that. But you need to have that confidence to step out of your comfort zone. And it might be that you have to make new friends, and that's going to be a really tough decision for you. But if you focus on what you want, really believe that you can get what you want and visualize on that, that is the best thing to do. It's very tough. It's very tough to break away from your peers, but unless you go through an experience and realize that, one road is not good for you, but the other is, you're not going to be able to, to make that transition. So just be very focused on what you want to do. Surround yourself with great people. Get yourself, even if it's like a teenager mentor to help you to get to where you want to be.
Love that. Thank you so much for that. I just think it's so important to be able to give those pearls of wisdom to people who are in the same situation, and those words can make a huge difference to somebody and really change the trajectory of their life.
Yes, absolutely. And there is one other thing that I just wanted to add is that, during my working years, yes, my confidence grew immensely. And then, I started becoming more social, started dating and met my husband some years later. But when I started having children, there was a big shift again in my confidence. Can I share that with you?
Please tell us all about it.
Yeah. So when I was in my early 30s when I had my first daughter, and like most mothers, you get very excited, and you can't wait for the birth of your child. And so when she arrived, it was all great. She came home, and my husband and I were very, very excited. And after a little while, as she started to grow, I started to feel like I was losing my confidence again, because all I could hear were the words mum, mum, mum. And I couldn't hear the words Linda. And so every time I heard the words mum, it felt like part of my identity was being stripped away. And I felt really, really guilty for that, because I thought to myself, for goodness sake, you're a mum. It's a blessing. Not everyone gets that opportunity to be a mum. So, snap out of it. Just calling you mum, be happy. But that was just the way I was feeling. And I thought, well, I never heard my mum complaining about that. I didn't hear other women complain about that either. But it was a real big thing for me. And I also felt disappointed in myself, because I'd gone through so many years of building up my confidence to now feeling that I'm unconfident again when I'm at a stage in my life when I'm going to be responsible for somebody else. And so I had to go through again some personal development. And I was fortunate, because of my husband's in the personal development arena, to be in environments that would help me to gain my confidence back again. And it wasn't really until my mum passed away in 2010 that I realized how short life was, and it could be just taken away from you at any point in time without any notice, because she left us very suddenly. And I really invested heavily in my personal development from that point onwards. Took me 3 years to get over my mum, cried every single day.
I'm so sorry for your loss, and
Oh,
you
thank
went
you.
too young.
Yes, yes. And so through, through the various mechanisms of releasing my mum through personal development, working on my confidence is what's made me into the person that I am today.
Wow, what a journey so far. I mean, amazing. So, were you at that time still working when you had your daughter? What's that timeline between having your daughter and losing your lovely mum?
Yes. So I lost my mum in 2010. So my daughter was 10 at that time period. And my mum was my best friend. She obviously lived in the UK, but then she retired out to the Caribbean. So she'd come over every summer for 3 months, help with the children, have spent lots of time with the grandchildren. And it was just missing that, that aspect and
Mm,
that friendship with
yeah,
her. And she was a great help. Each time I had a child, she was always there to help me for those first 3 months. So yeah.
yeah, it's a huge loss in your life. And it again, often for a lot of people, puts questions in about their identity again. So you've had one knock in your identity when you realize I'm a mum, and it seems like that's all I'm known as now, and I've kind of lost those other bits, or they're just somewhere else that I can't tap into. That was Linda, I'm a mum, and then that huge connection with your best friend, your mum. How did that affect you in terms of your identity? You're saying it did push you into more personal development to overcome it. Do you feel that it changed your sense of self, your identity of yourself?
Yes, absolutely. And that's a great question. I went into a very dark period when my mum died, questioned even why I was even here, because I just felt so not guilty, because it had nothing to do with me as to how she passed away. She unfortunately came out of the shower and she slipped on tiles and hit her head, and then she was in the house on her own overnight. But I felt guilty for not being there. I was so far away, because obviously she was in the Caribbean, and I was in London. And so that was what was playing on my mind for a
Mm,
long period of time. And prior to going through that second phase of intense personal development, I was a people pleaser. I would go around pleasing everyone else apart from myself, even to the point where, there are certain situations in families where, how can I put it? There's a 10-year difference between me and my other siblings, and I had a very special relationship with my mum, but I would do certain things to please other people so they didn't think that I had that special relationship with my mum, so that it looked like I was on the same level playing field as everyone else. And I realized that there's no point in trying to please other people. I just need to do me, please myself, and help others as opposed to please others. And so that was a big shift for me as well, because it meant that I had to get uncomfortable. I had to no longer be a yes person. I had to just be yes to myself, and also realize that as a mother and as a parent, I need to break that cycle, because I don't want my children growing up to be people pleasers. I don't want them to see me as being a people pleaser. I don't want them to see me as this person that can't get over a death for 3 years. And I want them to be able to invest in their personal development and to see the importance of that, and the importance of education, and all of my mistakes that I've made. I want them to learn from that, and I'm very open with them about the mistakes that I made. Obviously, nothing's perfect. I'm sure they will make mistakes. They have made mistakes, and they will do. It's all part of their growth, but they don't need to make the same mistakes I've made. They can learn from that and make their own mistakes in their own course of life.
that's amazing, Linda. There's so many people that I work with who struggle with the same issue of I'm a people pleaser. I do everything for everybody else and I'm exhausted doing it, but I am a people pleaser and I will always be a people pleaser. They don't realize they don't need to be a people pleaser, and that if they stop doing that, the world doesn't end, the sky doesn't fall. And actually, when you stop doing that, you connect better, stronger, more genuinely with people
Mm.
because you're doing it on more equal terms.
100%. I totally agree with that. And that transition on itself is very, very challenging. What it was for me, because it's breaking away from everything that I thought was correct for, at least half of my life.
Mm.
And to then, having to step into a different world and to be this strong, independent person, and realize that the people that I were pleasing were people that were not necessarily have my best interests at heart, and that the issues were around them, not around me. So why do I need to then please them? I need to just do me, and they just need to deal with whatever issues they've got going on. So yeah, that was a big turning point for me.
It's a huge turning point and it affects so many people. As children, when we're growing up, we need the validation, the acceptance, the love of our parents. That's what
Mm-hmm.
we crave.
Yes.
But we don't realize when we turn into adults that we don't need that. We want it, but we don't need it in the same way. When we're children, we need it because it's survival.
Yes, absolutely.
As adults, we want it, we would like it, but we don't need it.
Mm,
Survival. And that's the huge shift into deciding, you know what, I don't, like you said, I don't have to please them. I'm
exactly.
not depending on them. I get to make my choices now. And it's a huge breakthrough for an awful lot of people to realize, particularly once you get into adulthood, it's about choosing to drop that connection that I need
Yes.
to please them. It's not about survival. Nothing is going to go bad in my life by not pleasing them. What will
Mm-hmm.
actually go good in my life is that I'm going to form these wonderful bonds and connections with people that it is right with.
Yeah, and creating life on your own terms
Yeah.
rather than other people's expectations of you. And, there's a couple of things that you just said there about need and want. And if I can just share something very quickly with you,
Sure.
is that my husband, he does a lot of international public speaking around the world. And I remember observing him on one particular event, and he was talking about our relationship, which he often does. And he was saying that, Linda and I, we don't need each other. And I was like, what? What do you mean we don't need each other? That took me by complete surprise. But then when he broke it down to the audience and explained what he meant that we don't need each other to survive. We want each other. And that for me was like, oh, actually, you're absolutely right. And I think in terms of, relationships, whether they be business or personal, it's really important to define that difference between need and want. We all have different needs and we all have different wants, but certainly in a relationship, I think it's quite healthy not to need your partner, but to want and desire your partner.
I couldn't agree more. I absolutely agree with that. And
Yeah.
it's that one of those critical life lessons that many people never actually get to learn, the
Mm,
difference between needing and wanting, because we think I need.
yes.
And that's actually something that is held onto from childhood
Mm,
because you needed those things for the security to know that there will be a roof over your head, there will be food on the table, there will be affection.
mm-hmm.
You don't need those things from anybody. You now are an adult in your own right. You provide
Absolutely.
your own needs. Now
Mm,
you get to have wants.
yes. 100%.
Love it. So let's come back into your journey. So we'll come back into that wonderful career that you had evolved. You were doing this amazing job in human resources and developing yourself constantly, growing your confidence. What happened next in career?
Okay, so my last role was in a university in HR. So I was working at Brunel University, and
Wow.
I was there for 10 years. And whilst I was there, I was also starting off my property business with my husband. So when we first started dating, it was, all roses as it usually is. And then we decided we were going to live together. And then later on, we got married. But he had a house in South London, and I had a flat in West London. So when we were deciding, let's live together, he said to me, okay, so why don't, what did he say? He said, why don't I, as in him, why doesn't he get equity from his house? I get equity from my flat. We put it together and we buy a house. At that point in time, I knew nothing about property, and we had no commitment. And I was thinking, is he trying to scam me? Is he trying to take my money, or run up and get me to sign my house over to him? Because I had a little bit of trust issues there, and it took me a long while to get my head around it. But eventually, he convinced me, and that's what we did. And so we took equity out of both of our houses, but we kept both of our properties and we rented them out. So that was the start of the property journey. And then I started realizing, okay, this is good, because this means that I'm getting cash flow in from the property that I had. So we started to we started to repeat the process. So we took more equity out of other properties, and then we bought more, and that's how the portfolio started to grow. Then at some point, obviously, we ran out of money, so we had to then get some property training in terms of different strategies in order to look at other ways to acquire property. But I was doing that whilst I was working at Brunel, and over the course of 10 years, I had 3 children in Brunel. And each time I had a child, I would reduce my hours. I didn't tell anyone in Brunel that I had a property business until the day I left, which was 10 years later. And I'm so glad I didn't, because there were so many people that were like, oh, that's so risky. How can you do that? You've got 3 kids, and oh my goodness, what if the property market crashes and this, that, and the other? And the reason I'm so glad that I didn't, it was because I would have had 10 years of that. And I needed to keep focused on my goal. My goal was to create wealth. My goal was also to create a legacy for my children. And it's so easy to get distracted by the people you surround yourself with. And I was there because it was a job. At the time, I didn't feel that the property income was enough for me to leave my job. But it was definitely, by the time I had my third son, I said my third child, I should say, who was my son, and my husband was like, come on, Linda, it's time to go. And I'm like, no, I like the security of going into work, and I've got friends, and, whether I turn up or not, I'm still going to get a paycheck. And that shift, again, was very, very difficult for me. But I made it. And I'm glad that I made it, because it enabled me to have more time at home with my children. It enabled me to not have a boss. It enabled me to focus on our property business and to build it even more. I then got into other strategies, such as houses of multiple occupation, serviced accommodation, and now development as well, building properties from the ground up.
And do you feel, Linda, that if you had stayed at Brunel, would you have been able to move your business to that degree?
No, I was working part-time there, but I would, if I'm going to do something as big as property, I need to focus on it 100%. And working in the university would have been a distraction, and something would have to give at some point. And also, I had 3 children, and so I'm juggling lots and lots of balls. And, part of my story also, in terms of being employed and running a business at the same time and being a mum, was a huge amount of mum guilt. In the early days, when there wasn't a lot of cash flow in the properties and we were building the portfolio, we would do a lot of the cleaning and the decorating ourselves, as in me and my husband. And I remember there was a period of time when I had 3 kids, and we were in this one property, and I used to have this rug that I would carry around with me, and I'd put the rug in the center of the floor, and the children would sit on there, and they weren't allowed to move. And my eldest was like mummy. She would have to give them all their snacks and everything, because I'd be there with the roller painting everything. And I remember looking at them at one time thinking, what am I doing? Like, I should be baking cakes with them. I should be out in the park. I shouldn't be here painting, and they're sitting there like statues, not allowed to move in this dirty flat. But I realized that why I was doing it, and I felt so guilty about it. And I spoke to my kids many years ago after that, and they said, no, Mum, we loved it. It was fun going to different properties every weekend. But at the time, I didn't know that. And I felt guilty as a mum for not spending enough time on my children, but on the business. But I know now that obviously it's for a reason. It's for, it's for their legacy.
And I think that brings up such a brilliant point, that we tend to worry about things that are not the things to worry about.
Yes.
It's easy to go down that road. Now, that doesn't mean there aren't things to worry about, but we need to think very carefully about, is this a real concern? Evaluate the situation. Is everything okay? And sometimes you have to break through those more difficult patches in order to build that wealth, to build that success, to build the business, to build the relationships. To get there, it takes time and effort.
Absolutely. Yes.
And you must be so glad that you didn't tell all your colleagues at Brunel, like you said, that they would have been talking you out of it. And it's so easy for other people to lay their fears or their different levels of ambition on you.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And I think what really helped as well was that I was doing it in conjunction with my husband. So it wasn't a case of I was doing it on my own and then coming home to a husband that was in the corporate world and not supporting that dream or that vision. So that really helped, again, around the people that you surround yourselves with.
So what came next then?
What came next was Mothers in Business. So after spending some time at home just focusing on property, I realized that as you build a business, you start to create systems so that those systems can work for you, so that you work on the business rather than in the business. So it allowed me to have more time, and so I could go shopping or I could contribute more. So I decided that I was going to contribute more, and I thought, what part of my journey would have an impact on other women? And I thought, okay, juggling between motherhood and business, dealing with that mum guilt, dealing with that lack of confidence, dealing with that lack of identity. So when I first started Mothers in Business, I really didn't know what it was going to look like or how it was going to get created. But I just had a dream. I thought, I'm just going to do whatever it takes to help women. So I started off by doing one day and weekend events for mothers to come away from their environment, to reconnect with themselves again, without the pressures of being a mum, and just really thinking about the person that they were before they became a mother, and having a whole host of interactive activities. We even incorporated Taekwondo, breaking wooden blocks as well, to build up their confidence. Wow. So I did that for a little while, and then the pandemic hit, and so I thought, okay, how can I still support the mums, but without obviously doing these live events? And I created online masterminds, which then enabled me to reach more mothers outside of the UK, or outside of London, I should say, because it was online. It was from the comfort of their own home. And, whether you're a mother in the UK or in India, Australia, America, wherever, we all have similar issues when it comes to juggling motherhood and business. So that's what I created. And then I also do mentoring programs as well for mothers. But more recently, I've had to pivot in terms of looking at what am I actually going to focus on now, because I value my time. One of my property businesses, which is service accommodation, takes up a huge amount of my time, way too much than I want it to. So I've made some decisions to let some things go and just focus on my core property business and development projects as well. So this year is a year of transition for me. I will be finishing off some of my side projects towards October, November time, and then just fully focusing on creating and building even more my wealth and my legacy for my children.
That's amazing. And I think such a powerful choice to make for yourself, to be willing to let go of something. When you let go of one thing, it leaves you more free to focus and maximize another thing. And it is a
Yeah.
choice. So instead of making ourselves manic and overworked and overbusy and feeling like we're failing at the multitude of things,
Yes.
you can actually choose to let go of things, make that conscious choice, and then have the energy and the passion and the resources to do brilliantly at other things. I love that.
Thank you. And you know what really helped to drive that decision was, the relationship that I had with my mum and the memories that I created. So everything for me and Mac in terms of our parenting is about creating memories for our children. So that, when we're not around, they've still got those memories. Like I've got those memories with my mum. But also, there's a myth out there that, once your kids when they're young, they need lots of your attention, but as they get older, it gets easier. It doesn't at all. The challenges just get different. And in some ways I feel like I need to be there more now than I did before, purely because the world that we live in now, and there are stages where they're doing GCSEs, A levels, and my eldest has just finished university, and they're having to make life choices. I'm not making them for them, but I don't want to be so busy that I miss something, or I've missed being able to support them in helping them to shape a decision that could impact the rest of their lives. So if I've created a lifestyle that enables me to have enough income that I can do that, why am I going to keep getting busy and doing lots of different things when I can be there to support my children when I think they still need my support?
I think that's amazing. And that's a huge part of your legacy. And you've mentioned legacy a couple of times, and it's, I was going to say, it's a word I love. It's not just a word, it's a direction, an intention that I love. And it's so important. And I think that a lot of times we don't give legacy enough consideration in our choices. Sometimes we make choices based on what I want right now, instead of forward thinking to what is the legacy that I'm building?
Yes.
What am I going to be either remembered for, or what impact, even if I'm not remembered, but what impact am I going to have on the lives around me that I care about? So
Yeah.
you're leaving a legacy of a work ethic, of an education ethic, of connections with people, of the time well spent. So many incredible legacies that you're leaving. That's
And
so.
I love that word. I love that word impact that you've just mentioned there. That's so important to me. And now that I'm really focusing on developing projects as well, build projects from the ground up. It's also about, when this building goes up and I drive past it with my children or my grandchildren in the future, I can say that's a building that grandma and granddad put up, and that building will be there forever. And as I continue to make more and more buildings, that is the legacy. And whether we sell them or we keep them or not, it doesn't matter. Our kids and our grandkids and for generations to come can drive past these buildings and say, yeah, that was built by grandma or granddad. So that's what I'm, that's my core focus right now. Yeah.
Oh, I love it so much. And they will learn from your example. That legacy is showing that example.
Yeah.
And it gives them inspiration. It gives them something to fall back on, something when they're stuck trying to make choices for themselves, that they get to think, what would mum or dad do here?
Mm.
And it's the little voice in the back of your head when you're wanting to go one way and you think, I kind of know that they would be, that little voice back there is saying, yeah, they
Yeah.
would actually say, I need to knuckle down and do this exam and do well at it. Or they would say, don't run out the door of work at 5 o'clock, work a little bit longer, a little bit harder, do something impactful. They're going to have that voice as part of that legacy as well, aren't they?
Yes. Yeah. 100%. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, love it so much. So tell us a little bit more about the mothers in business. What's going on these days with mothers in business? Is it all the online? Are there meetings? How can people get involved in that?
Yep. So with Mothers in Business, like I said, we were doing online mastermind classes. So this is one of the things that I am going to be letting go of. I will have opportunities if ladies want to work with me on a one-to-one basis. I'm more than happy to do that. But in terms of the masterminds and live events, we won't be doing those going forward. But I have a great community of women in our Mothers in Business group, and we continue to support each other. And I love to inspire people through my own story. So even if I'm not physically doing a program as such with them, I'm there for help and support and guidance.
I love that. And maybe being a part of that group and the women who are in that group, it might inspire some of them to pick up the mantle in their own way, also to continue sharing that onwards and
Yes.
inspiring more people and lifting up more people. Now, also thinking on that same theme of inspiring people and lifting up people, you have won an amazing award as part of the Global Woman Club. Tell us a bit about your journey there.
Thank you. Yes. So I love Global Woman. I've been part of the organization for about the past 4 years. I started off as a member. And the reason why I got into Global Woman was because of my property background and being a mum. A lot of the property networking events were in the evening. That wasn't very convenient. It was full of men with lots of big egos, and I really wasn't that comfortable. So I came across Global Woman. I thought, okay, let's try this out and see how that works out. And I remember going to my first meeting. I signed up straight away, was in the front of the queue to go up on stage to talk about my business. And I remember standing there thinking, why am I at the front? I have no idea what I'm going to say. I'm petrified. I can't do this. And I went on the stage and I was a bit of a mess, but I did it anyway. But I felt comfortable to be a mess because the environment, the sisterhood, the support there, there was no judgment. And I've never looked back. Got involved, with lots of different projects, the book project, the book that you mentioned earlier. I can't see it because my spill we can there. The Mind of the Female Entrepreneurs, How to Succeed and Act in Business. Did media training, just so many things that I got involved in, and then became a regional director in March 2021 for Accra, Ghana, which is the country that my husband is from. And it's great to just grow with Global Woman because it gives me the opportunity to not only be part of the community, but also to build my own community as well. And being a regional director, there are lots of other benefits. You get to speak around the world. You get to get involved in different projects with the founder, Morella Sula. And I just love my journey with Global Woman. It's for me, it's not something that I do for an income stream. It's something that I do to contribute. It's one of my contribution values in order to help other women. So, like I said to you, with Mothers in Business, I'm going to be letting go of that, but I'm still going to be supporting women through Global Woman.
Love it. And what was the exceptional award? You won this in 2020. Tell us winning that award. What does the award mean to you? How did it feel to win that?
Oh, it felt absolutely amazing. And it was actually, it was such a wonderful experience because Morella being so creative, it was during the very first lockdown. And, she had us all choose our outfits, share different outfits online to say, oh, which one should we wear? Should we wear this one or that one? So there's a real great buzz. And we were all encouraged to, prepare a lovely gala dinner in our own homes, share what we were going to have for our gala dinner, post it online. And then the event itself, we were all eating our gala dinners during the performance. They had music like we were at the Oscars. It was absolutely amazing. And so when they called my name out, I couldn't believe it. It was just such a lovely surprise. I was a member at the time. I wasn't a director. And it just meant the world to me that people recognized me for being exceptional. it was just a lovely title, an absolutely lovely title, and an honor to have that. And and it opened doors as well. Any award that you get with association with Global Woman, it's great. It's great PR, great publicity. I then started getting more invitations to interviews and podcasts and speaking opportunities as well. So yeah, it's just been a great experience.
That is fantastic. And I have seen how you operate, and it's no wonder that you won the exceptional
Oh,
award.
thank you.
Well deserved. So, what is next for you? I know you're going to be letting go of some things to focus on the other things. What's quite imminent for you? What would you love to share with us that you're most excited about next?
Okay, so one of the key things that I'm really excited about, and my focus is on my health as well. So health is very key to me. And a year ago this month, I became vegan. And so with that, that's enabled me to be able to lose weight, which is why I went into it in the first place. But I've been able to lose weight. I've been able to gain a lot more energy as well, which has been great for me. And I did have a scare just over a year ago in terms of diabetes. And so changing my lifestyle, changing my habits has enabled me to have a much more positive outlook in life. And, going back again to, losing my mum, I don't want to lose my mum. I'm sorry, I don't want my kids to lose me too early. So I'm going to do whatever I can to add more years to my life and more life in my years. And the other thing that I'm doing to focus on my health is Taekwondo. I've been doing Taekwondo for many years. I started that off as just doing that for a bit of fun to get out of the house. But then, I started making friends. I started grading, learning Korean as well. And that's really helped a lot in terms of my values around my health and my lifestyle. So having more energy is going to help me to be able to focus more on my business, particularly in the property business, which isn't an easy business to go into. There's lots of risk taking as well, within that. But you need to be able to focus and have lots of energy to just go for your goals. And so that's what's next for me.
Love it, love it. And I really love something that you said a moment ago about saying that you want to have more years, add more years to your life and add more life to your years. I've
Yeah.
never heard it put that way, and God, that's good.
Well, I must say that they're not my words. This because I'm a big fan of Tony Robbins. I've done lots of his programs, and that's something that I learned from him in one of the programs that I did during lockdown.
Tonyism, we love a good Tonyism. He's got a wonderful selection of them.
Yes. Yeah, and it's been a big part of my growth with all of his programs. Yeah.
But of course, it's most important what you do with that inspiration, isn't it? You can go to those programs and come away thinking, yes, that was wonderful. But if you don't change anything, if you don't take action,
yes,
then nothing changes.
Exactly. Yeah. The action is, that's the whole point of it. Yeah, absolutely.
So as a
Being
final,
accountable as well.
and if you can't be accountable to yourself, don't expect other people to be accountable
No.
for you, right? Love
Exactly.
it. So as a final parting thought, if you can go back in time to that young, shy girl that started out at the beginning, and if you could sit with her for a moment as the woman that you are today, with the amazing life that you've had, the incredible things that are ahead for you, the learnings that you've had, what advice would you give that little girl now?
Oh, wow. What a powerful question. Thank you. Okay. The first thing I would do is I would sit down with that little girl. I wouldn't stand up. I'd sit down next to her. I'd hold her hand, and I'd literally stroke her hand to make sure that she knew that I was there. And I'd look directly in her eyes and I'd tell her that you are good enough. You are good enough. You have everything that you need right now, and that everything will be fine. Just believe and trust in yourself. You can make a plan, but make sure that you know what that plan is. Visualize what that plan will be. How do you want your life to be? And don't think about what other people might think. Just think about that life that you can create for yourself. And if you can visualize it and if you can believe it, it will happen. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be easy at all. There'll be times when you want to give up. There'll be times when you think it's not worth doing it. There's going to be times that you're going to think that I can't do this. This is too big for me, but you can do it. And I just keep holding and squeezing her hand, and then I give her a big hug.
I love it. I really love it. What beautiful advice, true connection to that younger girl. And when you said that you'd hold her hand, I held my own hand.
Oh.
I was there with you in
Oh,
that
thank
moment.
you.
So that was beautiful and a wonderful way to end today. But Linda, thank you so much for sharing from the heart, sharing your business wisdom, your choice wisdom, and the magic that makes you the wonderful person that you are, the exceptional person that you are today. So thank you for being here with us today.
And thank you, Tracy, for creating this space to enable me to share, people before me, people after me, to share with your audience, because what you're doing is so powerful and so inspirational. The title of your business as well is just, it's just so on point. And I love what you're doing. I love how you're helping and supporting other people and giving other people a voice to inspire others as well. So thank you as well from the bottom of my heart.
Oh my gosh, thank you very, very much. I'm blushing now. Thank you, Linda, and thank you to everyone listening, everybody joining us in this journey today. And I trust that you have some pearls of wisdom from our wonderful, beautiful Linda. And we look forward to seeing you again soon for another episode of Limitless Potential.